Diplomacy is built on trust, yet one strike in Doha shattered that trust into pieces. Qatar's prime minister declared, with sharp clarity, that Benjamin Netanyahu destroyed the last hope of hostages returning alive. These words were not whispered in secrecy. They were spoken on an international stage, pointing a direct finger at Israel's decision to attack Hamas in the heart of Qatar. Families who once prayed for release now face despair. What began as negotiations under fragile hope collapsed in a single night of fire. For months, the negotiations were described as delicate threads. Qatar positioned itself as the mediator between Israel and Hamas, a rare bridge in a region torn apart. The stakes were enormous: dozens of hostages, lives hanging in uncertainty, families clinging to calls that never came. Diplomacy was the only path left. Every meeting in Doha carried the weight of history. Each gesture between mediators could either open a door or close it forever. The world watched silently, believing that diplomacy could still deliver. Yet beneath the surface, the tension was far sharper than many realized. Then one decision changed the narrative. Israel launched a strike in Doha, targeting Hamas operatives. What was meant to be a calculated move in the shadow of war erupted into an international scandal. The strike was not only physical destruction, it was symbolic devastation. Qatar's Prime Minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, did not soften his words. He declared that the strike killed any hope of hostage release. That statement carried the weight of broken trust, broken negotiations, and broken families. The mediator's credibility was wounded. The process that was already fragile could not survive this blow. When a leader speaks in absolutes, the world listens. To say killed any hope is not political rhetoric. It is finality. It is the sealing of a door that can no longer be reopened. The families of hostages, already tortured by waiting, now heard that their wait had been turned to despair. Diplomats who invested weeks of effort suddenly faced collapse. The echo of those words did not stop in Doha. They rippled across the Middle East, across Washington, across every capital where negotiations had once been seen as the last human option. Hope is not only a political tool, it is psychological survival. For families, even the faintest rumor of progress can fuel endurance. But when hope is publicly declared dead, it creates a void filled only with fear and rage. Imagine the father who believed his child might come home, now told that trust has been destroyed. Imagine the mother who checked her phone at dawn for updates, now confronted with silence. The strike did not only hit Hamas targets, it hit the hearts of families around the world. It turned personal pain into collective outrage. And the consequences, still unfolding, may extend far beyond the hostages. Every negotiation relies on credibility. Mediators depend on trust from both sides. With the Doha strike, Qatar's role as a trusted middle ground collapsed. Sheikh Mohammed's statement was not only criticism, it was a diplomatic earthquake. By accusing Netanyahu directly, he repositioned Qatar's stance. It was no longer neutral. It was wounded, and that wound may never heal. This breakdown will be studied in History as the Moment, when the path of diplomacy was abandoned for force, and the consequences, still unfolding, may extend far beyond the hostages. What comes next is shrouded in uncertainty. Will Hamas retaliate by refusing any negotiation? Will Israel justify the strike as necessary, even at the cost of lives waiting in captivity? Will the United States step in to salvage what remains of diplomacy? The questions are many, but the answers are scarce. What is clear is that the hostage negotiations were already hanging by a thread. Now that thread appears cut. The strike did not just hit a location in Doha. It struck the very idea that dialogue could prevail in this conflict. History often turns on single decisions. Leaders are remembered not for their intentions, but for their outcomes. Netanyahu may have sought to weaken Hamas, but in doing so, he weakened the very process that might have freed his own people. This is the paradox of conflict. Victory in battle can mean defeat in humanity. Qatar's voice, once a channel for dialogue, now echoes with accusation. Yet even in this collapse, a lesson emerges. Diplomacy cannot survive without respect. Trust cannot be built with fire. And no hostage can be freed if the bridge between sides is destroyed. Behind the politics are lives, children who miss their parents, parents who pray for their sons and daughters, siblings who sit by silent phones. Their pain is not abstract, it is the real cost of decisions made in distant rooms. When Sheikh Mohammed spoke, he was not only addressing governments. He was speaking to those families. He was telling them that the path home for their loved ones may now be blocked. That message, raw and unfiltered, is the most devastating part of this entire event. The world is reminded of a bitter truth. Wars are not only fought on battlefields. They are fought in words, in trust, in diplomacy. When diplomacy dies, humanity suffers. Netanyahu's strike may have been intended as strength, but history may remember it as weakness. The weakness of ignoring the human cost. Sheikh Mohammed's statement will be remembered as the voice that declared the truth, however painful it was to hear. If history teaches anything, it is that broken trust is harder to rebuild than broken walls. The hostages, their families, and the world deserve leaders who value dialogue over destruction. As citizens, as observers, we cannot remain indifferent. Share their story. Keep the truth alive. For silence allows despair to become permanent, but awareness can still light the path forward. The world may have lost hope in Doha, but hope itself must never be surrendered.